The sound of pestle and mortar echoed in the small compound as Udani's mother prepared dinner from the little yam left. Life had not been kind to them since her husband's death. Every day was a battle to stretch nothing into something, to turn hunger into endurance. But tonight she had made a decision, one that weighed heavier than the poverty she carried on her shoulders. Her eyes rested on Udani, her eldest daughter, now blossoming into a young woman. Udani had always been different, sharp, determined, hungry for knowledge. She would stay awake with a borrowed textbook until the lantern's flame died. Her mother had no riches to give, no land, no gold, but she had hope. And she was ready to gamble that hope on Udani. That night she called her daughter close. "Udani," she said softly, her voice trembling, "you will go to Lagos. Your uncle has promised to help. He will see you through university. This is the only way, my child. If you succeed, you will save us all." Tears stung Udani's eyes. Lagos sounded like a dream and a nightmare all at once. Leaving meant abandoning her siblings and the mother who had been her shield. But she saw the fire of desperation in her mother's eyes, and she could not say no. When dawn came, Udani's bag was packed with little more than a few dresses and her mother's prayers. As the rickety bus rattled toward the city, she pressed her forehead against the window, watching her mother grow smaller in the distance. She whispered a vow only she could hear. "I will endure, Mama. For my family." Lagos awaited, bright, loud, and dangerous. She did not know it yet, but the city would test not just her will to learn, but her very soul. Lagos welcomed Udani with chaos. Horns blared, hawkers chased after buses, and the air smelled of roasted corn mixed with dust. She clutched her small bag as her uncle, a tall man with a stiff face, waved her over. "You will stay with me. Behave yourself and you will not lack," he said flatly, leading her into his modest 2-bedroom flat. First, life seemed promising. Udani quickly adapted to house chores, scrubbing the floors, cooking, washing his clothes, and in return her uncle paid her tuition, ensuring she began her university classes. She sat in lecture halls in awe, hungry to learn, and determined to make her mother proud. Her mother's weekly phone calls kept her strong, though she always hid the loneliness and exhaustion in her voice. But something soon changed. Her uncle's eyes began to linger on her, longer than they should. When she swept the sitting room, she felt his gaze burning her back. When she cooked in the kitchen, she noticed him standing at the doorway, watching too silently. His comments grew unsettling. "You are becoming a woman now. Your beauty will cause trouble one day." Udani laughed nervously, dismissing it as jokes, but the stares grew bolder. He bought her new dresses, short, tight, and strange to her. "Wear this," he said. "You must look presentable when guests come." She refused at first, but his response was chilling. "If you will not respect me, then forget school fees. And don't expect me to send money to that wretched woman you call mother." Fear lodged in her chest. She knew what education meant for her family. She could not throw it away. Against her will, she obeyed, the shame stinging like fire. Every night she curled beneath the thin bedsheet and whispered, "Mama, forgive me. I will endure. Just let me finish school." Her uncle thought he had caged her, but he was only laying the foundation for a twist he could never predict. Udani soon learned that her uncle's kindness had been nothing but bait. It began with small gatherings in the sitting room. His friends laughing loudly, their eyes crawling over her as she served them drinks. At first, she thought it was just men being men, but then she noticed how her uncle watched them watching her. His lips curled into a smile that made her stomach tighten. One evening, after his friends left, he called her into his room. His tone was cold, his eyes sharp. "Udani," he said, "you are no longer a child. You have a gift men are willing to pay for. Do you know what your beauty is worth?" She froze, not understanding. But then he spelled it out. He would begin introducing her to his friends, and in return they would help pay for her upkeep. Udani shook her head violently. "Uncle, no. Mama didn't send me here for this. I came to study." His voice thundered through the room. Then forget school. Forget your siblings eating. You think education is free. Nothing is free in Lagos. The next week, he dressed her in one of the revealing gowns he had bought and forced her to serve drinks again. This time, the laughter of his friends carried a cruel undertone. She realized she was no longer a niece in her uncle's house. She was merchandise. It started with small favors. Then it became open bidding. Men wagered over her as though she were a prize. Udani bit her lips, enduring, because her future depended on finishing school. But every night she cried herself to sleep, asking God why her mother's sacrifice had turned into a curse. Then came a strange twist. One evening, her uncle received a phone call that made him grin from ear to ear. He slapped the table, jubilant. "At last, a big fish," he muttered. The man on the phone had offered a staggering sum for Udani, but insisted on staying anonymous. Her uncle didn't care who it was. The money was too sweet. That night, he bought her more makeup, tighter dresses, and ordered her to prepare. "This client is special," he warned. "Don't mess it up." Udani's heart sank. She expected another old, lustful man, but destiny had prepared someone else. Someone whose gaze would change everything. The car that pulled up for Udani was unlike any she had seen. Sleek, black, with tinted windows that reflected her anxious face. The driver said nothing, only opened the door and motioned her in. Her heart pounded all through the ride, her hands fiddling nervously with the cheap clutch her uncle had given her. When they arrived at a grand mansion in Lekki, she was certain it belonged to some politician or chief. The gates opened silently, swallowing her into a world of marble floors, sparkling chandeliers, and silence so heavy it pressed against her chest. She was ushered into a sitting room where she expected to find the pot-bellied client waiting. Instead, a young man entered, tall, broad-shouldered, with a smile that unsettled her more than comforted. His eyes lingered too long, but unlike the others, they did not feel crude. They felt piercing, as if he was reading her soul. "I'm Xavier," he said simply, offering her a drink. Udani frowned. "Where is the client?" He leaned back casually, his lips twitching into a smirk. "He will join us soon. For now, make yourself comfortable." Comfortable. She could barely breathe under his gaze. He asked her about her classes, her life in Lagos, even her dreams. She answered stiffly, confused why this assistant cared. Hours passed, and the client never appeared. Finally, Xavier stood, walked her to the door and whispered, "Don't tell your uncle anything. Not about me. Not about tonight." Udani left more unsettled than she arrived. Why had nothing happened? Why did this man look at her as though he already knew her? What she didn't know was that Xavier had seen her months ago on campus. Struck by her beauty and aura, he had hired a private investigator to trace her. Learning of her uncle's twisted dealings, he devised his own plan, to outbid every man, to own her time and perhaps her heart. And as the car drove her home, Udani clutched her chest, shaken not by fear this time, but by the memory of Xavier's stare, a stare she could not forget. Days passed, yet Udani found herself replaying every detail of that night. The way Xavier's eyes lingered on her, the way his questions felt different, not like those of her uncle's friends who stripped her with their gaze, but like someone peeling back her soul. She hated herself for remembering his smile, but it haunted her even in lectures. Her uncle, on the other hand, was overjoyed. "The anonymous client has paid double," he bragged, counting crisp notes in front of her. "You see how valuable you are. If you obey me, we will never lack." His voice dripped with greed, blind to the storm stirring in Udani's heart. That evening, another car arrived for her. Again she was delivered to the mansion. Again she met only Xavier. He greeted her with a calm grin, pretending once more to be the assistant. This time he didn't waste words. He asked her about her favorite books, made her laugh with a silly story about getting lost in traffic, and poured her juice instead of wine. Udani's guard slipped, and before she knew it, she was laughing, really laughing, for the first time in months. Their eyes met during one of those laughs, and her smile faded into breathlessness. Their hands brushed when he passed her a glass, and her body betrayed her, shivering at the touch. She gasped, pulling away, but her heart raced in a way it never had before. Back at home, she caught herself smiling at nothing, lost in thought. Her uncle noticed. "What is amusing you?" he asked sharply. She quickly bowed her head, hiding her face. But inside something was blooming. And one day, shockingly, it was she who asked him, "Uncle, is there no bid today?" Her uncle raised a brow, surprised. For once she seemed eager. He didn't understand why, but greed silenced his suspicions. Soon another anonymous bid came through, higher than all the rest. Udani's heart leapt. Could it be him again? She rushed to prepare, her pulse alive with a longing she dared not name. The mansion's door had barely closed before Udani found herself moving faster than she intended. She didn't even wait for Xavier to speak. She ran into his arms and hugged him tightly. The words slipped from her lips without thought. "I missed you." Xavier blinked, stunned. He had expected her to remain cautious, shy, guarded as always. But the warmth of her embrace shattered his restraint. For a moment, he just stood still, breathing in her scent, feeling the tremor in her body against his. Slowly, he pulled back to look into her eyes. They were wide, nervous, yet burning with something she didn't dare name. He couldn't hold back any longer. He leaned forward and pressed his lips to hers. Udani froze, her breath stolen. For a heartbeat, she let herself melt into the kiss. Then panic surged. She pushed him back lightly, whispering, "If your boss catches you, you'll be in trouble." Xavier laughed softly, brushing his thumb across her cheek. "You're so innocent. You think there is a boss." Her brows furrowed in confusion, but before she could ask, he kissed her again. Slower this time, deeper, as though memorizing the taste of her lips. This time she didn't resist. Her hands trembled, unsure whether to pull him closer or push him away. When they finally broke apart, her chest heaved, her heart wild. She turned her face, ashamed of how much she had wanted it. He smiled knowingly, whispering, "Don't be afraid of what you feel. I'm not like the others." That night no other man came. No transaction was made. It was only Xavier and Udani, sitting side by side, talking and stealing glances until the driver came to take her home. But the moment she lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling, she realized the truth. She wasn't just enduring anymore. She was longing. And that longing had a name, Xavier. Xavier had only meant to toy with curiosity, but after that kiss, he could no longer deny it. He wanted her, not as a passing thrill, but as something deeper. He began bidding outrageous amounts just to keep her away from the other men. Every time her uncle announced another anonymous request, Udani's heart skipped. She already knew who it was. Their meetings grew longer. What began as nervous conversation turned into whispered jokes, stolen touches, and laughter that lingered long after she returned home. Udani found herself humming in class, distracted during lectures, smiling into the air when she should have been writing notes. Her friends noticed, but she told them nothing. How could she explain a love she didn't even understand? At the mansion, Xavier made no effort to hide his feelings anymore. He would brush a stray braid from her face, trace her fingers when she handed him a glass, or press his lips against her knuckles just to see her blush. The more she resisted, the more her heart betrayed her, melting under his gaze. But it was dangerous. Each time she left his side, dread crept in. What if her uncle discovered the truth? What if he realized she wasn't being passed around anymore, but guarded by one man who had stolen her completely? Her uncle did notice her change, the sudden glow in her cheeks, the excitement with which she prepared for the mysterious client. Puzzled him. He chalked it up to her finally accepting her role, and praised himself for training her well. Blinded by greed, he didn't see that she was no longer his puppet. One evening, as she prepared to leave, she caught herself staring at her reflection, whispering softly, "Is this love?" She had endured pain, humiliation, betrayal, Yet with Xavier she felt alive. For the first time in a long time she dared to dream. But dreams, Udani would soon learn, could turn to nightmares in a blink. Xavier couldn't hold back any longer. Each meeting with Udani tightened the knot around his heart. What had begun as curiosity now consumed him. He watched her laugh, he kissed her lips, and he knew this was no game. One evening, as the city lights glowed through the tall windows, he finally spoke. "Udani," he said softly, his hand closing over hers. "I haven't been honest with you." She blinked, startled. "What do you mean?" He exhaled, his voice heavy with truth. "There is no client. Has always been me. I am Xavier Okonjo, son of Chief Okonjo." Her breath hitched. She had heard that name before. A powerful politician, feared and respected across Lagos. Why me?" she whispered. His eyes burned into hers. "Because the first time I saw you on campus, I couldn't forget you. I had you traced, I learned about your uncle, and I swore to keep you from his filth. I thought it would be a passing desire, but Udani, I can't let you go. I want you. I want to take you away from all of this." Tears welled in her eyes. No one had ever spoken of her as something precious, not since her father died. Against every fear, every doubt, her heart wanted to believe him. She squeezed his hand. "Xavier, if you mean this, take me away." He pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a desperation that promised escape, freedom, love. For the first time, she allowed herself to dream of life beyond her uncle's chains. But fate is cruel. The very next day, her uncle received a whisper from one of his contacts. Rumors about an anonymous bidder who wasn't a client at all, but a young man shielding Udani from the rest. Suspicion turned into fury. That evening he confronted her, his voice shaking with rage. "You dare betray me, Udani. You think I don't know? If I cannot profit from you, no one will." Udani's heart stopped. The walls of the small flat suddenly felt like a prison. She knew their secret was no longer safe. And outside, as Xavier planned to meet her again, unaware of the storm, danger was already closing in.